Hello, and welcome. Tonight, we step gently into one of the most enchanting fairy tales ever told. There's nothing you need to do right now. Just settle in, breathe a little slower, and let the day drift away. If this space brings you comfort, you're always welcome to stay by liking the video or subscribing, but only if it truly feels right to you. I love knowing where these stories travel. So if you wish, leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time the night has reached for you. Now lower the lights. Let a soft sound fill the room and allow yourself to be carried slowly, calmly into tonight's story. The Blue Light. There was once on a time a soldier who for many years had served the king faithfully, but when the war came to an end, could serve no longer because of the many wounds which he had received. The king said to him, "Thou mayest return to thy home. I need thee no longer, and thou wilt not receive any more money, for he only receives wages who renders me service for them." Then the soldier did not know how to earn a living, went away greatly troubled, and walked the whole day until in the evening he entered a forest. When darkness came on, he saw a light, which he went up to, and came to a house wherein lived a witch. "Do give me one night's lodging, and a little to eat and drink," said he to her, "or I shall starve." "Oh, she answered, "who gives anything to a runaway soldier? Yet will I be compassionate and take you in if you will do what I wish." "What do you wish?" said the soldier. "That you should dig all round my garden for me tomorrow." The soldier consented, and next day labored with all his strength, but could not finish it by the evening. "I see well enough," said the witch, "that you can do no more today, but I will keep you yet another night in payment, for which you must tomorrow chop me a load of wood and make it small." The soldier spent the whole day in doing it, and in the evening the witch proposed that he should stay one night more. "Tomorrow you shall only do me a very trifling piece of work. Behind my house there is an old dry well into which my light has fallen. It burns blue and never goes out, and you shall bring it up again for me." Next day, the old woman took him to the well and let him down in a basket. He found the blue light and made her a signal to draw him up again. She did draw him up, but when he came near the edge, she stretched down her hand and wanted to take the blue light away from him. "No," said he, perceiving her evil intention, "I will not give thee the light until I am standing with both feet upon the ground." The witch fell into a passion, let him down again into the well, and went away. The poor soldier fell without injury on the moist ground, and the blue light went on burning, but of what use was that to him? He saw very well that he could not escape death. He sat for a while, very sorrowfully. Then suddenly he felt in his pocket and found his tobacco pipe, which was still half full. "This shall be my last pleasure," thought he. Pulled it out, lit it at the blue light, and began to smoke. When the smoke had circled about the cavern, suddenly a little black dwarf stood before him and said, "Lord, what are thy commands? What commands have I to give thee?" Replied the soldier, quite astonished. "I must do everything thou biddest me," said the little man. "Good," said the soldier. "Then, in the first place, help me out of this well." The little man took him by the hand and led him through an underground passage, but he did not forget to take the blue light with him. On the way, the dwarf showed him the treasures which the witch had collected and hidden there, and the soldier took as much gold as he could carry. When he was above, he said to the little man, "Now go and bind the old witch and carry her before the judge." In a short time, she, with frightful cries, came riding by as swift as the wind on a wild tomcat. Nor was it long after that before the little man reappeared. "It is all done," said he, "and the witch is already hanging on the gallows." "What further commands has my lord?" inquired the dwarf. "At this moment, none," answered the soldier. "Thou canst return home, only be at hand immediately, if I summon thee. Nothing more is needed than that thou shouldst light thy pipe at the blue light, and I will appear before thee at once." Thereupon he vanished from his sight. The soldier returned to the town from which he had come. He went to the best inn, ordered himself handsome clothes, and then bade the landlord furnish him a room as handsomely as possible. When it was ready, and the soldier had taken possession of it, he summoned the little black mannequin and said, "I have served the king faithfully, but he has dismissed me and left me to hunger, and now I want to take my revenge." "What am I to do?" asked the little man. "Late at night, when the king's daughter is in bed, bring her here in her sleep. She shall do servant's work for me." The mannequin said, "That is an easy thing for me to do, but a very dangerous thing for you. For if it is discovered, you will fare ill." When 12 o'clock had struck, the door sprang open, and the mannequin carried in the princess. "Aha! Art thou there?" cried the soldier. "Get to thy work at once. Fetch the broom and sweep the chamber." When she had done this, he ordered her to come to his chair, and then he stretched out his feet and said, "Pull off my boots for me." And then he threw them in her face and made her pick them up again and clean and brighten them. She, however, did everything he bade her, without opposition, silently, and with half-shut eyes. When the first cock crowed, the mannequin carried her back to the royal palace and laid her in her bed. Next morning, when the princess arose, she went to her father and told him that she had had a very strange dream. "I was carried through the streets with the rapidity of lightning," said she, "and taken into a soldier's room. And I had to wait upon him like a servant, sweep his room clean, his boots, and do all kinds of menial work. It was only a dream, and yet I am just as tired as if I really had done everything. The dream may have been true," said the king. "I will give thee a piece of advice. Fill thy pocket full of peas and make a small hole in it, and then, if thou art carried away again, they will fall out and leave a track in the streets." But unseen by the king, the mannequin was standing beside him when he said that, and heard all. At night, when the sleeping princess was again carried through the streets, some peas certainly did fall out of her pocket, but they made no track, for the crafty mannequin had just before scattered peas in every street there was. And again, the princess was compelled to do servant's work until cock-crow. Next morning, the king sent his people out to seek the track, but it was all in vain, for in every street, poor children were sitting, picking up peas and saying, "It must have rained peas last night." "We must think of something else," said the king. "Keep thy shoes on when thou goest to bed, and before thou comest back from the place where thou art taken, hide one of them. There I will soon contrive to find it." The black mannequin heard this plot, and at night, when the soldier again ordered him to bring the princess, revealed it to him, and told him that he knew of no expedient to counteract this stratagem, and that if the shoe were found in the soldier's house, it would go badly with him. "Do what I bid thee," replied the soldier. And again, this third night, the princess was obliged to work like a servant. But before she went away, she hid her shoe under the bed. Next morning, the king had the entire town searched for his daughter's shoe. It was found at the soldier's, and the soldier himself, who at the entreaty of the dwarf had gone outside the gate, was soon brought back and thrown into prison. In his flight, he had forgotten the most valuable things he had, the blue light and the gold, and had only 1 ducat in his pocket. And now, loaded with chains, he was standing at the window of his dungeon when he chanced to see one of his comrades passing by. The soldier tapped at the pane of glass, and when this man came up, said to him, "Be so kind as to fetch me the small bundle I have left lying in the inn, and I will give you a ducat for doing it." His comrade ran thither and brought him what he wanted. As soon as the soldier was alone again, he lighted his pipe and summoned the black mannequin. "Have no fear," said the latter to his master. "Go wheresoever they take you, and let them do what they will, only take the blue light with you." Next day, the soldier was tried, and though he had done nothing wicked, the judge condemned him to death. When he was led forth to die, he begged a last favor of the king. "What is it?" asked the king. "That I may smoke one more pipe on my way." "Thou mayest smoke 3, answered the king, "but do not imagine that I will spare thy life." Then the soldier pulled out his pipe and lighted it at the blue light. And as soon as a few wreaths of smoke had ascended, the mannequin was there with a small cudgel in his hand, and said, "What does my lord command?" "Strike down to earth that false judge there, and his constable, and spare not the king who has treated me so ill." Then the mannequin fell on them like lightning, darting this way and that way, and whosoever was so much as touched by his cudgel fell to earth, and did not venture to stir again. The king was terrified. He threw himself on the soldier's mercy, and merely to be allowed to live at all, gave him his kingdom for his own, and the princess to wife. The Three Apprentices. There were once 3 apprentices who had agreed to keep always together while traveling, and always to work in the same town. At one time, however, their masters had no more work to give them, so that at last they were in rags, and had nothing to live on. Then one of them said, "What shall we do? We cannot stay here any longer. We will travel once more, and if we do not find any work in the town we go to, we will arrange with the innkeeper there that we are to write and tell him where we are staying, so that we can always have news of each other, and then we will separate." And that seemed best to the others also. They went forth and met on the way a richly dressed man who asked who they were. "We are apprentices looking for work. Up to this time we have kept together, but if we cannot find anything to do, we are going to separate." "There is no need for that," said the man. "If you will do what I tell you, you shall not want for gold or for work. Nay, you shall become great lords and drive in your carriages." One of them said, "If our souls and salvation be not endangered, we will certainly do it." "They will not," replied the man. "I have no claim on you." One of the others had, however, looked at his feet, and when he saw a horse's foot and a man's foot, he did not want to have anything to do with him. The devil, however, said, "Be easy. I have no designs on you, but on another soul, which is half my own already, and whose measure shall but run full." As they were now secure, they consented, and the devil told them what he wanted. The first was to answer, "All 3 of us," to every question. The second was to say, "For money," and the third, "And quite right, too." They were always to say this one after the other, but they were not to say one word more. And if they disobeyed this order, all their money would disappear at once. But so long as they observed it, their pockets would always be full. As a beginning, he at once gave them as much as they could carry, and told them to go to such and such an inn when they got to the town. They went to it, and the innkeeper came to meet them, and asked if they wished for anything to eat. The first replied, "All three of us." "Yes," said the host, "that is what I mean." The second said, "For money." "Of course," said the host. The third said, "And quite right, too." "Certainly it is right," said the host. Good meat and drink were now brought to them, and they were well waited on. After the dinner came the payment, and the innkeeper gave the bill to the one who said, "All three of us." The second said, "For money," and the third, "And quite right too." "Indeed it is right," said the host. "All three pay, and without money I can give nothing." They, however, paid still more than he had asked. The lodgers who were looking on said, "These people must be mad." "Yes, indeed they are," said the host. "They are not very wise." So they stayed some time in the inn, and said nothing else but, "All three of us, for money, and quite right too." But they saw and knew all that was going on. It so happened that a great merchant came with a large sum of money, and said, "Sir host, take care of my money. For me here are 3 crazy apprentices who might steal it from me." The host did as he was asked. As he was carrying the trunk into his room, he felt that it was heavy with gold. Thereupon he gave the 3 apprentices a lodging below, but the merchant came upstairs into a separate apartment. When it was midnight, and the host thought that all were asleep, he came with his wife, and they had an ague, and struck the rich merchant dead. And after they had murdered him, they went to bed again. When it was day, there was a great outcry. The merchant lay dead in bed, bathed in blood. All the guests ran at once, but the host said, "The 3 crazy apprentices have done this." The lodgers confirmed it, and said, "It can have been no one else." The innkeeper, however, had them called, and said to them, "Have you killed the merchant?" "All 3 of us," said the first. "For money," said the second. And the third added, "And quite right too." "There, now you hear," said the host. "They confess it themselves." They were taken to prison, therefore, and were to be tried. When they saw that things were going so seriously, they were after all afraid. But at night the devil came and said, "Bear it just 1 day longer, and do not play away your luck." Not one hair of your head shall be hurt." The next morning, they were led to the bar, and the judge said, "Are you the murderers, all three of us? Why did you kill the merchant? For money? You wicked wretches, you have no horror of your sins." And quite right, too. "They have confessed and are still stubborn," said the judge. "Lead them to death instantly." So they were taken out, and the host had to go with them into the circle. When they were taken hold of by the executioner's men, and were just going to be led up to the scaffold, where the headsman was standing with naked sword, a coach drawn by 4 blood-red chestnut horses came up suddenly, driving so fast that fire flashed from the stones, and someone made signs from the window with a white handkerchief. Then said the headsman, "It is a pardon coming," and "Pardon, pardon" was called from the carriage also. Then the devil stepped out as a very noble gentleman, beautifully dressed, and said, "You three are innocent. You may now speak, make known what you have seen and heard." Then said the eldest, "We did not kill the merchant. The murderer is standing there in the circle." And he pointed to the innkeeper. "In proof of this, go into his cellar, where many others, whom he has killed, are still hanging." Then the judge sent the executioner's men thither, and they found it was as the apprentices said. And when they had informed the judge of this, he caused the innkeeper to be led up, and his head was cut off. Then said the devil to the three, "Now I have got the soul which I wanted to have, and you are free, and have money for the rest of your lives." The hut in the forest. A poor woodcutter lived with his wife and 3 daughters in a little hut on the edge of a lonely forest. One morning, as he was about to go to his work, he said to his wife, "Let my dinner be brought into the forest to me by my eldest daughter, or I shall never get my work done, and in order that she may not miss her way." He added, "I will take a bag of millet with me, and strew the seeds on the path." When therefore the sun was just above the center of the forest, the girl set out on her way with a bowl of soup, but the field sparrows and wood sparrows, larks and finches, blackbirds and seskins had picked up the millet long before, and the girl could not find the track. Then, trusting to chance, she went on and on until the sun sank and night began to fall. The trees rustled in the darkness, the owls hooted, and she began to be afraid. Then in the distance, she perceived a light which glimmered between the trees. "There ought to be some people living there who can take me in for the night," thought she, and went up to the light. It was not long before she came to a house, the windows of which were all lighted up. She knocked, and a rough voice from inside cried, "Come in." the girl stepped into the dark entrance and knocked at the door of the room. "Just come in," cried the voice. And when she opened the door, an old gray-haired man was sitting at the table, supporting his face with both hands, and his white beard fell down over the table almost as far as the ground. By the stove lay 3 animals, a hen, a cock, and a brindled cow. The girl told her story to the old man and begged for shelter for the night. The man said, "Pretty little hen, pretty little cock, and pretty brindled cow. What say ye to that?" "Dukes," answered the animals, and that must have meant, "We are willing." For the old man said, "Here you shall have shelter and food. Go to the fire and cook us our supper." The girl found in the kitchen abundance of everything and cooked a good supper, but had no thought of the animals. She carried the full dishes to the table, seated herself by the gray-haired man, ate, and satisfied her hunger. When she had had enough, she said, "But now I am tired. Where is there a bed in which I can lie down and sleep?" The animals replied, "Thou hast eaten with him. Thou hast drunk with him. Thou hast had no thought for us. So find out for thyself where thou canst pass the night." Then said the old man, "Just go upstairs, and thou wilt find a room with 2 beds. Shake them up, and put white linen on them, and then I too will come and lie down to sleep." The girl went up, and when she had shaken the beds and put clean sheets on, she lay down in one of them, without waiting any longer for the old man. After some time, however, the gray-haired man came, took his candle, looked at the girl, and shook his head. When he saw that she had fallen into a sound sleep, he opened a trap-door and let her down into the cellar. Late at night, the woodcutter came home and reproached his wife for leaving him to hunger all day. "It is not my fault," she replied. "The girl went out with your dinner and must have lost herself, but she is sure to come back tomorrow." The woodcutter, however, arose before dawn to go into the forest and requested that the second daughter should take him his dinner that day. "I will take a bag with lentils," said he. "The seeds are larger than millet. The girl will see them better and can't lose her way." At dinner time, therefore, the girl took out the food, but the lentils had disappeared. The birds of the forest had picked them up, as they had done the day before, and had left none. The girl wandered about in the forest until night, and then she too reached the house of the old man, was told to go in, and begged for food and a bed. The man with the white beard again asked the animals, "Pretty little hen, pretty little cock, and pretty brindled cow. What say ye to that?" The animals again replied, "Dukes." And everything happened just as it had happened the day before. The girl cooked a good meal and drank with the old man, and did not concern herself about the animals. And when she inquired about her bed, they answered, "Thou hast eaten with him, thou hast drunk with him. Thou hast had no thought for us, to find out for thyself where thou canst pass the night." When she was asleep, the old man came, looked at her, shook his head, and let her down into the cellar. On the third morning, the woodcutter said to his wife, "Send our youngest child out with my dinner. Today, she has always been good and obedient, and will stay in the right path and not run about after every wild humble-bee as her sisters did." The mother did not want to do it, and said, "Am I to lose my dearest child as well?" "Have no fear," he replied. "The girl will not go astray. She is too prudent and sensible. Besides, I will take some peas with me and strew them about. They are still larger than lentils, and will show her the way." But when the girl went out with her basket on her arm, the wood pigeons had already got all the peas in their crops, and she did not know which way she was to turn. She was full of sorrow, and never ceased to think how hungry her father would be, and how her good mother would grieve if she did not go home. At length, when it grew dark, she saw the light, and came to the house in the forest. She begged quite prettily to be allowed to spend the night there, and the man with the white beard once more asked his animals, "Pretty little hen, pretty little cock, and beautiful brindled cow, what say ye to that?" "Dukes," said they. Then the girl went to the stove where the animals were lying, and petted the cock and hen, and stroked their smooth feathers with her hand, and caressed the brindled cow between her horns, and when in obedience to the old man's orders, she had made ready some good soup, and the bowl was placed upon the table. She said, "Am I to eat as much as I want, and the good animals to have nothing? Outside is food in plenty. I will look after them first." So she went and brought some barley, and stewed it for the cock and hen, and a whole armful of sweet, smelling hay for the cow. "I hope you will like it, dear animals," said she, "and you shall have a refreshing draught in case you are thirsty." Then she fetched in a bucketful of water, and the cock and hen jumped onto the edge of it, and dipped their beaks in, and then held up their heads, as the birds do when they drink, and the brindled cow also took a hearty draught. When the animals were fed, the girl seated herself at the table by the old man, and ate what he had left. It was not long before the cock and the hen began to thrust their heads beneath their wings, and the eyes of the cow likewise began to blink. Then said the girl, "Ought we not to go to bed? Pretty little hen, pretty little cock, and pretty brindled cow. What say ye to that?" The animals answered, "Dukes." Thou hast eaten with us, thou hast drunk with us, thou hast had kind thought for all of us. We wish thee good night." Then the maiden went upstairs, shook the feather beds, and laid clean sheets on them. And when she had done it, the old man came and lay down on one of the beds, and his white beard reached down to his feet. The girl lay down on the other, said her prayers, and fell asleep. She slept quietly till midnight, and then there was such a noise in the house that she awoke. There was a sound of cracking and splitting in every corner, and the doors sprang open and beat against the walls. The beams groaned as if they were being torn out of their joints. It seemed as if the staircase were falling down, and at length there was a crash, as if the entire roof had fallen in. As, however, all grew quiet once more, and the girl was not hurt, she stayed quietly lying where she was and fell asleep again. But when she woke up in the morning, with the brilliancy of the sunshine, what did her eyes behold? She was lying in a Pontoy hall, and everything around her shone with royal splendor. On the walls, golden flowers grew up on a ground of green silk. The bed was of ivory, and the canopy of red velvet, and on a chair close by was a pair of shoes embroidered with pearls. The girl believed that she was in a dream, but 3 richly clad attendants came in and asked what orders she would like to give. "If you will go," she replied, "I will get up at once and make ready some soup for the old man, and then I will feed the pretty little hen and the cock and the beautiful brindled cow." She thought the old man was up already and looked round at his bed. He, however, was not lying in it, but a stranger. And while she was looking at him and becoming aware that he was young and handsome, he awoke, sat up in bed, and said, "I am a king's son, and was bewitched by a wicked witch, and made to live in this forest as an old gray-haired man. No one was allowed to be with me but my 3 attendants, in the form of a cock, a hen, and a brindled cow. The spell was not to be broken until a girl came to us whose heart was so good that she showed herself full of love not only towards mankind, but towards animals. And that thou hast done, and by thee at midnight we were set free. And the old hut in the forest was changed back again into my royal palace. And when they had arisen, the king's son ordered the 3 attendants to set out and fetch the father and mother of the girl to the marriage feast. "But where are my 2 sisters?" inquired the maiden. "I have locked them in the cellar, and tomorrow they shall be led into the forest, and shall live as servants to a charcoal burner until they have grown kinder, and do not leave poor animals to suffer hunger." Donkey Cabbages. There was once a young huntsman who went into the forest to lie in wait. He had a fresh and joyous heart, and as he was going thither, whistling upon a leaf, an ugly old crone came up, who spoke to him and said, "Good day, dear huntsman. Truly, you are merry and contented, but I am suffering from hunger and thirst. Do give me an alms." The huntsman had compassion on the poor old creature, felt in his pocket, and gave her what he could afford. He was then about to go further, but the old woman stopped him and said, "Listen, dear huntsman, to what I tell you. I will make you a present in return for your kindness. Go on your way now, but in a little while you will come to a tree whereon 9 birds are sitting, which have a cloak in their claws and are plucking at it. Take your gun and shoot into the midst of them. They will let the cloak fall down to you, but one of the birds will be hurt and will drop down dead. Carry away the cloak. It is a wishing cloak. When you throw it over your shoulders, you only have to wish to be in a certain place, and you will be there in the twinkling of an eye. Take out the heart of the dead bird and swallow it whole, and every morning early, when you get up, you will find a gold piece under your pillow." The huntsman thanked the wise woman and thought to himself, "Those are fine things that she has promised me, if all does but come true." And verily, when he had walked about 100 paces, he heard in the branches above him such a screaming and twittering that he looked up and saw there a crowd of birds who were tearing a piece of cloth about with their beaks and claws and tugging and fighting as if each wanted to have it all to himself. "Well," said the huntsman, "this is wonderful. It has really come to pass, just as the old wife foretold." And he took the gun from his shoulder, aimed and fired right into the midst of them, so that the feathers flew about. The birds instantly took to flight with loud outcries, but one dropped down dead, and the cloak fell at the same time. Then the huntsman did as the old woman had directed him, cut open. The bird sought the heart, swallowed it down, and took the cloak home with him. Next morning, when he awoke, the promise occurred to him, and he wished to see if it also had been fulfilled. When he lifted up the pillow, the gold piece shone in his eyes, and next day he found another, and so it went on every time he got up. He gathered together a heap of gold, but at last he thought, "Of what use is all my gold to me? If I stay at home, I will go forth and see the world." He then took leave of his parents, buckled on his huntsman's pouch and gun, and went out into the world. It came to pass that one day he traveled through a dense forest, and when he came to the end of it, in the plain before him stood a fine castle. An old woman was standing with a wonderfully beautiful maiden looking out of one of the windows. The old woman, however, was a witch, and said to the maiden, "There comes one out of the forest who has a wonderful treasure in his body. We must filch it from him, my dear daughter. It is more suitable for us than for him. He has a bird's heart about him, by means of which a gold piece lies every morning under his pillow." She told her what she was to do to get it, and what part she had to play, and finally threatened her, and said with angry eyes, "And if you do not attend to what I say, it will be the worse for you." Now when the huntsman came nearer, he descried the maiden, and said to himself, "I have traveled about for such a long time, I will take a rest for once, and enter that beautiful castle. I have certainly money enough." Nevertheless, the real reason was that he had caught sight of the pretty girl. He entered the house and was well received and courteously entertained. Before long, he was so much in love with the young witch that he no longer thought of anything else, and only saw things as she saw them, and did what she desired. The old woman then said, "Now we must have the bird's heart. He will never miss it." She prepared a drink, and when it was ready, poured it into a cup and gave it to the maiden, who was to present it to the huntsman. She did so, saying, "Now, my dearest, drink to me." So he took the cup, and when he had swallowed the draught, he brought up the heart of the bird. The girl had to take it away secretly and swallow it herself, for the old woman would have it so. Thenceforward, he found no more gold under his pillow, but it lay instead under that of the maiden, from whence the old woman fetched it away every morning. But he was so much in love and so befooled that he thought of nothing else but of passing his time with the girl. Then the old witch said, "We have the bird's heart, but we must also take the wishing cloak away from him." The girl answered, "We will leave him, that he has lost his wealth." The old woman was angry and said, "Such a mantle is a wonderful thing, and is seldom to be found in this world. I must and will have it." She gave the girl several blows, and said that if she did not obey, it should fare ill with her. So she did the old woman's bidding, placed herself at the window, and looked on the distant country as if she were very sorrowful. The huntsman asked, "Why dost thou stand there so sorrowfully?" "Ah, my beloved," was her answer, "over yonder lies the garnet mountain, where the precious stones grow. I long for them so much that when I think of them, I feel quite sad. But who can get them? Only the birds. They fly and can reach them, but a man never." "Hast thou nothing else to complain of?" said the huntsman. "I will soon remove that burden from thy heart." With that, he drew her under his mantle, wished himself on the garnet mountain, and in the twinkling of an eye, they were sitting on it together. Precious stones were glistening on every side, so that it was a joy to see them, and together they gathered the finest and costliest of them. Now the old woman had, through her sorceries, contrived that the eyes of the huntsman should become heavy. He said to the maiden, "We will sit down and rest a while. I am so tired that I can no longer stand on my feet." Then they sat down, and he laid his head in her lap and fell asleep. When he was asleep, she unfastened the mantle from his shoulders and wrapped herself in it, picked up the garnets and stones, and wished herself back at home with them. But when the huntsman had had his sleep out and awoke, and perceived that his sweetheart had betrayed him and left him alone on the wild mountain, he said, "Oh, what treachery there is in the world," and sat down there in care and sorrow, not knowing what to do. But the mountain belonged to some wild and monstrous giants who dwelt thereon and lived their lives there. And he had not sat long before he saw 3 of them coming towards him. So he lay down as if he were sunk in a deep sleep. Then the giants came up, and the first kicked him with his foot and said, "What sort of an earthworm is lying curled up here?" The second said, "Step upon him and kill him." But the third said, "That would indeed be worth your while. Just let him live. He cannot remain here. And when he climbs higher toward the summit of the mountain, the clouds will lay hold of him and bear him away." So saying, they passed by. But the huntsman had paid heed to their words, and as soon as they were gone, he rose and climbed up to the summit of the mountain. And when he had sat there a while, a cloud floated towards him, caught him up, carried him away, and traveled about for a long time in the heavens. Then it sank lower and let itself down on a great cabbage garden girt round by walls, so that he came softly to the ground on cabbages and vegetables. Then the huntsman looked about him and said, "If I had but something to eat, I am so hungry, and my hunger will increase in course of time. But I see here neither apples, nor pears, nor any other sort of fruit everywhere. Nothing but cabbages." But at length he thought, "At a pinch, I can eat some of the leaves. They do not taste particularly good, but they will refresh me." With that, he picked himself out a fine head of cabbage, and he ate it. But scarcely had he swallowed a couple of mouthfuls than he felt very strange and quite different. 4 legs grew on him, a large head, and 2 thick ears, and he saw with horror that he was changed into an ass. Still, as his hunger increased every minute, and as the juicy leaves were suitable to his present nature, he went on eating with great zest. At last, he arrived at a different kind of cabbage, but as soon as he had swallowed it, he again felt a change and reassumed his former human shape. Then the huntsman lay down and slept off his fatigue. When he awoke next morning, he broke off one head of the bad cabbages and another of the good ones, and thought to himself, "This shall help me to get my own again, and punish treachery." Then he took the cabbages with him, climbed over the wall, and went forth to seek for the castle of his sweetheart. After wandering about for a couple of days, he was lucky enough to find it again. He dyed his face brown so that his own mother would not have known him, and begged for shelter. "I am so tired," said he, "that I can go no further." The witch asked, "Who are you, countryman, and what is your business?" "I am a king's messenger, and was sent out to seek the most delicious salad which grows beneath the sun. I have even been so fortunate as to find it, and am carrying it about with me. But the heat of the sun is so intense that the delicate cabbage threatens to wither, and I do not know if I can carry it any further." When the old woman heard of the exquisite salad, she was greedy and said, "Dear countryman, let me just taste this wonderful salad." "Why not?" answered he. "I have brought 2 heads with me, and will give you one of them." And he opened his pouch and handed her the bad cabbage. The witch suspected nothing amiss, and her mouth watered, so for this new dish that she herself went into the kitchen and dressed it. When it was prepared, she could not wait until it was set on the table, but took a couple of leaves at once and put them in her mouth. But hardly had she swallowed them than she was deprived of her human shape, and she ran out into the courtyard in the form of an ass. Presently, the maidservant entered the kitchen, saw the salad standing there, ready prepared, and was about to carry it up. But on the way, according to habit, she was seized by the desire to taste, and she ate a couple of leaves. Instantly, the magic power showed itself, and she likewise became an ass, and ran out to the old woman, and the dish of salad fell to the ground. Meantime, the messenger sat beside the beautiful girl, and as no one came with the salad, and she also was longing for it, she said, "I don't know what has become of the salad." The huntsman thought the salad must have already taken effect, and said, "I will go to the kitchen and inquire about it." As he went down, he saw the 2 asses running about in the courtyard. The salad, however, was lying on the ground. "All right," said he. "The 2 have taken their portion." And he picked up the other leaves, laid them on the dish, and carried them to the maiden. "I bring you the delicate food myself," said he, "in order that you may not have to wait longer." Then she ate of it, and was like the others, immediately deprived of her human form, and ran out into the courtyard in the shape of an ass. After the huntsman had washed his face, so that the transformed ones could recognize him, he went down into the courtyard and said, "Now you shall receive the wages of your treachery," and bound them together, all three with one rope, and drove them along until he came to a mill. He knocked at the window. The miller put out his head and asked what he wanted. "I have 3 unmanageable beasts," answered he, "which I don't want to keep any longer. Will you take them in and give them food and stable room and manage them as I tell you, and then I will pay you what you ask?" The miller said, "Why not? But how am I to manage them?" The huntsman then said that he was to give 3 beatings and 1 meal daily to the old donkey, and that was the witch. 1 beating and 3 meals to the younger one, which was the servant girl, and to the youngest, which was the maiden, no beatings, and 3 meals, for he could not bring himself to have the maiden beaten. After that, he went back into the castle and found therein everything he needed. After a couple of days, the miller came and said he must inform him that the old ass, which had received 3 beatings and only 1 meal daily, was dead. "The 2 others," he continued, "are certainly not dead, and are fed 3 times daily, but they are so sad that they cannot last much longer." The huntsman was moved to pity, put away his anger, and told the miller to drive them back again to him. And when they came, he gave them some of the good salad, so that they became human again. The beautiful girl fell on her knees before him and said, "Ah, my beloved, forgive me for the evil I have done you. My mother drove me to it. It was done against my will, for I love you dearly. Your wishing cloak hangs in a cupboard, and as for the bird's heart, I will take a vomiting potion." But he thought otherwise and said, "Keep it. It is all the same, for I will take thee for my true wife." So the wedding was celebrated, and they lived happily together until their death. The Spirit in the Glass Bottle. Once upon a time, there was a poor woodcutter who worked from morning until late at night. When he had finally saved up some money, he said to his boy, "You are my only child. I want to spend the money that I have earned by the sweat of my brow on your education. Learn an honest trade, so you can support me in my old age when my limbs have grown stiff and I have to sit at home." Then the boy went to a university and studied diligently. His teachers praised him, and he remained there for some time. After he had worked through a few classes, but was still not perfect in everything, the little pittance that the father had saved was all spent, and the boy had to return home to him. "Oh," said the father sadly, "I cannot give you anything more, and in these hard times I cannot earn a heller more than what we need for our daily bread." "Father." "Dear," answered the son, don't worry about it. If it is God's will, everything will turn out well for me. I will do all right." When the father said he was going into the woods and earn some money by cutting cordwood, the son said, "I will go with you and help you." "No, my son," said the father, "you will find it too difficult. You are not used to hard work and will not be able to do it. Furthermore, I have only one axe and no money left to buy another one with." "Just go to the neighbor," answered the son. "He will lend you his axe until I have earned enough to buy one for myself." So the father borrowed an axe from the neighbor, and the next morning at daybreak, they went out into the woods together. The son helped his father and was quite cheerful and full of energy. When the sun was directly above them, the father said, "Let us rest now and eat our noon meal. Then all will go twice as well." The son picked up his bread and said, "Just you rest, father. I am not tired. I will walk about a little in the woods and look for birds' nests." "Oh, you fool," said the father. "Why do you want to run about? Afterwards, you will be tired and no longer able to lift an arm. Stay here and sit down beside me." But the son went into the woods, ate his bread, was very cheerful, and looked into the green branches to see if he could find a bird's nest. He walked to and fro until at last he came to an enormous oak that was certainly many 100 years old, and that 5 men would not have been able to span. He stood there, looking at it, and thought, "Many a bird must have built its nest in that tree." Then, suddenly, he thought that he heard a voice. Listening, he became aware of someone calling out with a muffled voice, "Let me out! Let me out!" He looked around, but could not see anything. Then he thought that the voice was coming out of the ground, so he shouted, "Where are you?" The voice answered, "I am stuck down here among the oak roots. Let me out. Let me out." The student began to scrape about beneath the tree, searching among the roots, until at last he found a glass bottle in a little opening. Lifting it up, he held it against the light, and then saw something shaped like a frog jumping up and down inside. "Let me out! Let me out!" it cried again, and the student, thinking no evil, pulled the cork from the bottle. Immediately, a spirit ascended from it and began to grow. It grew so fast that within a few moments, a horrible fellow, half as big as the tree, was standing there before the student. "Do you know," he cried in a terrifying voice, "what your reward is for having let me out?" "No," replied the student fearlessly. "How should I know that?" "Then I will tell you," shouted the spirit. "I must break your neck for it." "You should have said so sooner," answered the student, "for then I would have left you shut up inside. However, my head is going to stay where it is until more people have been consulted. "More people here, more people there," shouted the spirit. "You shall have the reward you have earned. Do you think that I was shut up there for such a long time as a favor? No, it was a punishment. I am the mighty Mercurius. I must break the neck of whomsoever releases me." "Calm down," answered the student. "Not so fast. First, I must know that you really were shut up in that little bottle and that you are the right spirit. If you can indeed get inside again, then I will believe it, and you may do with me whatsoever you want." The spirit said arrogantly, "That is an easy trick," pulling himself in and making himself as thin and short as he had been before. He then crept back into the opening and through the neck of the bottle. He was scarcely inside when the student pushed the cork back into the bottle and threw it back where it had been among the oak roots. And thus the spirit was deceived. The student was about to return to his father, but the spirit cried out pitifully, "Oh, do let me out! Oh, do let me out!" "No," answered the student, "not a second time. I will not release a person who once tried to kill me, now that I have captured him again." "If you will set me free," cried the spirit, "I will give you so much that you will have enough for all the days of your life." "No," answered the student, "you would cheat me like you tried to the first time. You are giving away your own good fortune," said the spirit. "I will not harm you, but instead will reward you richly." The student thought, "I will venture it. Perhaps he will keep his word, and in any event, he will not get the better of me." So he pulled out the cork, and the spirit rose up from the bottle as before, and extended himself, becoming as large as a giant. "Now, you shall have your reward," he said, handing the student a little rag that looked just like a small bandage. He said, "If you rub a wound with the one end, it will heal, and if you rub steel or iron with the other end, it will turn into silver." "I have to try that," said the student. He went to a tree, scratched the bark with his axe, then rubbed it with the one end of the bandage. It immediately closed together and was healed. "Now it is all right," he said to the spirit, "and we can part." The spirit thanked him for having freed him, and the student thanked the spirit for the present, and returned to his father. "Where have you been running about?" said the father. "Why have you forgotten your work? I said that you wouldn't get anything done." "Don't be concerned, father. I will make it up." "Make it up, indeed," said the father angrily. "Don't bother. Just watch, father. I will soon cut down that tree there and make it crash." Then he took his bandage, rubbed the axe with it, and struck a mighty blow. But because the iron had turned into silver, the cutting edge bent back on itself. "Hey, Father, just look what a bad axe you've given me. It is all bent out of shape." The father was shocked and said, "Oh, what have you done? Now I'll have to pay for the axe, and I don't know what with. That is all the good I have from your work." "Don't get angry," said the son. "I will pay for the axe." "Oh, you blockhead," cried the father. "How will you pay for it? You have nothing but what I give you. You have students' tricks stuck in your head, but you don't know anything about chopping wood." After a little while, the student said, "Father, I can't work any longer after all. Let's quit for the day." "Now then," he answered, "do you think I can stand around with my hands in my pockets like you? I have to go on working, but you may head for home." "Father, I am here in these woods for the first time. I don't know my way alone. Please go with me." His anger had now subsided, so the father at last let himself be talked into going home with him. There, he said to the son, "Go and sell the damaged axe, and see what you can get for it. I will have to earn the difference in order to pay the neighbor." The son picked up the axe and took it into town to a goldsmith, who tested it, weighed it, and then said, "It is worth 400 talers. I do not have that much cash with me." The student said, "Give me what you have. I will lend you the rest." The goldsmith gave him 300 talers and owed him 100. Then the student went home and said, "Father, I have some money. Go and ask the neighbor what he wants for the axe." "I already know," answered the old man. 1 taler, 6 groschens. "Then give him 2 talers, 12 groschens. That is double its worth and is plenty. See, I have more than enough money." Then he gave the father 100 talers, saying, "You shall never need anything. Live just like you want to." "My goodness," said the old man, "where did you get all that money?" Then the son told him everything that had happened, and how by trusting in his luck he had made such a catch. With the money that was left, he went back to the university and continued his studies. And because he could heal all wounds with his bandage, he became the most famous doctor in the whole world. Gossip Wolf and the Fox. The she-wolf brought forth a young one and invited the fox to be godfather. "After all, he is a near relative of ours," said she. "He has a good understanding and much talent. He can instruct my little son and help him forward in the world." The fox, too, appeared quite honest and said, "Worthy Mrs. Gossip, I thank you for the honor which you are doing me. I will, however, conduct myself in such a way that you shall be repaid for it." He enjoyed himself at the feast and made merry. Afterwards he said, "Dear Mrs. Gossip, it is our duty to take care of the child. It must have good food that it may be strong. I know a sheepfold from which we might fetch a nice morsel." The wolf was pleased with the ditty, and she went out with the fox to the farmyard. He pointed out the fold from afar and said, "You will be able to creep in there without being seen. And in the meantime, I will look about on the other side to see if I can pick up a chicken." He, however, did not go there, but sat down at the entrance to the forest, stretched his legs, and rested. The she-wolf crept into the stable. A dog was lying there, and it made such a noise that the peasants came running out, caught Gossip Wolf, and poured a strong, burning mixture which had been prepared for washing over her skin. At last she escaped and dragged herself outside. There lay the fox, who pretended to be full of complaints, and said, "Ah, dear Mistress Gossip, how ill I have fared. The peasants have fallen on me, and have broken every limb I have. If you do not want me to lie where I am and perish, you must carry me away." The she-wolf herself was only able to go away slowly, but she was in such concern about the fox that she took him on her back and slowly carried him perfectly safe and sound to her house. Then the fox cried to her, "Farewell, dear mistress, Gossip, may the roasting you have had do you good," laughed heartily at her, and bounded off. Simeli Mountain. There were once 2 brothers, the one rich, the other poor. The rich one, however, gave nothing to the poor one, and he gained a scanty living by trading in corn, and often did so badly that he had no bread for his wife and children. Once, when he was wheeling a barrow through the forest, he saw on one side of him a great, bare, naked-looking mountain, and as he had never seen it before, he stood still and stared at it with amazement. While he was thus standing, he saw 12 great wild men coming towards him, and as he believed they were robbers, he pushed his barrow into the thicket, climbed up a tree, and waited to see what would happen. The 12 men, however, went to the mountain and cried, "Simeli Mountain, Simeli Mountain, open!" And immediately the barren mountain opened down the middle, and the 12 went into it, and as soon as they were within, it shut. After a short time, however, it opened again, and the men came forth, carrying heavy sacks on their shoulders. And when they were all once more in the daylight, they said, "Simeli Mountain, Simeli Mountain, shut thyself." Then the mountain closed together, and there was no longer any entrance to be seen to it, and the 12 went away. When they were quite out of sight, the poor man got down from the tree and was curious to know what really was secretly hidden in the mountain. So he went up to it and said, "Simeli Mountain, Simeli Mountain, open." And the mountain opened to him also. He went inside, and the whole mountain was a cavern full of silver and gold, and behind lay great piles of pearls and sparkling jewels heaped up like corn. The poor man hardly knew what to do, and whether he might take any of these treasures for himself or not. But at last he filled his pockets with gold, but he left the pearls and precious stones where they were. When he came out again, he also said, "Simeli Mountain, Simeli Mountain, shut thyself." And the mountain closed itself, and he went home with his barrow. And now he had no more cause for anxiety, but could buy bread for his wife and children with his gold and wine into the bargain. He lived joyously and uprightly, gave help to the poor, and did good to everyone. When, however, the money came to an end, he went to his brother, borrowed a measure that held a bushel, and brought himself some more, but did not touch any of the most valuable things. When, for the third time, he wanted to fetch something, he again borrowed the measure of his brother. The rich man had, however, long been envious of his brother's possessions and of the handsome way of living which he had set on foot, and could not understand from whence the riches came, and what his brother wanted with the measure. Then he thought of a cunning trick, and covered the bottom of the measure with pitch, and when he got the measure back, a piece of money was sticking in it. He at once went to his brother and asked him, "What hast thou been measuring in the bushel measure?" "Corn and barley," said the other. Then he showed him the piece of money, and threatened that if he did not tell the truth, he would accuse him before a court of justice. The poor man then told him everything, just as it happened. The rich man, however, ordered his carriage to be made ready, and drove away, resolved to use the opportunity better than his brother had done, and to bring back with him quite different treasures. When he came to the mountain, he cried, "Simeli Mountain, Simeli Mountain, open." The mountain opened, and he went inside it. There lay the treasures all before him, and for a long time he did not know which to clutch at first. At length he loaded himself with as many precious stones as he could carry. He wished to carry his burden outside, but as his heart and soul were entirely full of the treasures, he had forgotten the name of the mountain, and cried, "Simeli Mountain, Simeli Mountain, open." That, however, was not the right name, and the mountain never stirred, but remained shut. Then he was alarmed, but the longer he thought about it, the more his thoughts confused themselves, and his treasures were no more of any use to him. In the evening, the mountain opened, and the 12 robbers came in, and when they saw him, they laughed and cried out, "Bird, have we caught thee at last? Didst thou think we had never noticed that thou hadst been in here twice? We could not catch thee then. This third time thou shalt not get out again." Then he cried, "It was not I, it was my brother, but let him beg for his life, and say what he would, they cut his head off." The Singing Bone. In a certain country, there was once great lamentation over a wild boar that laid waste the farmers' fields, killed the cattle, and ripped up people's bodies with his tusks. The king promised a large reward to anyone who would free the land from this plague, but the beast was so big and strong that no one dared to go near the forest in which it lived. At last, the king gave notice that whosoever should capture or kill the wild boar should have his only daughter to wife. Now, there lived in the country 2 brothers, sons of a poor man, who declared themselves willing to undertake the hazardous enterprise. The elder, who was crafty and shrewd out of pride; the younger, who was innocent and simple from a kind heart. The king said, "In order that you may be the more sure of finding the beast, you must go into the forest from opposite sides." So the elder went in on the west side, and the younger on the east. When the younger had gone a short way, a little man stepped up to him. He held in his hand a black spear and said, "I give you this spear because your heart is pure and good. With this, you can swiftly attack the wild boar, and it will do you no harm." He thanked the little man, shouldered the spear, and went on fearlessly. Before long, he saw the beast which rushed at him. But he held the spear towards it, and in its blind fury, it ran so swiftly against it that its heart was cloven in twain. Then he took the monster on his back and went homewards with it to the king. As he came out at the other side of the wood, there stood at the entrance a house where people were making merry with wine and dancing. His elder brother had gone in here, and thinking that after all the boar would not run away from him, was going to drink until he felt brave. But when he saw his young brother coming out of the wood, laden with his booty, his envious, evil heart gave him no peace. He called out to him, "Come in, dear brother, rest and refresh yourself with a cup of wine." The youth, who suspected no evil, went in and told him about the good little man who had given him the spear wherewith he had slain the boar. The elder brother kept him there until the evening, and then they went away together. And when in the darkness they came to a bridge over a brook, the elder brother let the other go first. And when he was halfway across, he gave him such a blow from behind that he fell down dead. He buried him beneath the bridge, took the boar, and carried it to the king, pretending that he had killed it. Whereupon he obtained the king's daughter in marriage. And when his younger brother did not come back, he said, "The boar must have killed him," and everyone believed it. But as nothing remains hidden from God, so this black deed also was to come to light. Years afterwards, a shepherd was driving his herd across the bridge and saw lying in the sand beneath a snow-white little bone. He thought that it would make a good mouthpiece, so he clambered down, picked it up, and cut out of it a mouthpiece for his horn. But when he blew through it for the first time, to his great astonishment, the bone began of its own accord to sing, "Ah, friend, thou blowest upon my bone. Long have I lain beside the water. My brother slew me for the boar, and took for his wife the king's young daughter." "What a wonderful horn," said the shepherd. "It sings by itself. I must take it to my lord the king." And when he came with it to the king, the horn again began to sing its little song. The king understood it all, and caused the ground below the bridge to be dug up, and then the whole skeleton of the murdered man came to light. The wicked brother could not deny the deed, and was sewn up in a sack and drowned. But the bones of the murdered man were laid to rest in a beautiful tomb in the churchyard. Mother Hulda. A widow had 2 daughters. One was pretty and industrious. The other was ugly and lazy. And as the ugly one was her own daughter, she loved her much the best, and the pretty one was made to do all the work and be the drudge of the house. Every day, the poor girl had to sit by a well on the high road and spin until her fingers bled. Now it happened once that as the spindle was bloody, she dipped it into the well to wash it. But it slipped out of her hand and fell in. Then she began to cry and ran to her stepmother and told her of her misfortune. And her stepmother scolded her without mercy and said in her rage, "As you have let the spindle fall in, you must go and fetch it out again." Then the girl went back again to the well, not knowing what to do. And in the despair of her heart, she jumped down into the well, the same way the spindle had gone. After that, she knew nothing. And when she came to herself, she was in a beautiful meadow, and the sun was shining on the flowers that grew round her. And she walked on through the meadow until she came to a baker's oven that was full of bread. And the bread called out to her, "Oh, take me out, or I shall burn. I am baked enough already." Then she drew near, and with the baker's peel she took out all the loaves, one after the other. And she went farther on, till she came to a tree weighed down with apples. and it called out to her, "Oh, shake me, shake me. We apples, are all of us ripe?" Then she shook the tree until the apples fell like rain, and she shook until there were no more to fall. And when she had gathered them together in a heap, she went on farther. At last she came to a little house, and an old woman was peeping out of it, but she had such great teeth that the girl was terrified and about to run away. Only the old woman called her back. "What are you afraid of, my dear child? Come and live with me, and if you do the housework well and orderly, things shall go well with you. You must take great pains to make my bed well, and shake it up thoroughly, so that the feathers fly about, and then in the world it snows, for I am Mother Hulda." As the old woman spoke so kindly, the girl took courage, consented, and went to her work. She did everything to the old woman's satisfaction, and shook the bed with such a will that the feathers flew about like snowflakes. And so she led a good life, had never a cross word, but boiled and roast meat every day. When she had lived a long time with Mother Hulda, she began to feel sad, not knowing herself what ailed her. At last, she began to think she must be homesick, and although she was 1,000 times better off than at home where she was yet, she had a great longing to go home. At last she said to her mistress, "I am homesick, and although I am very well off here, I cannot stay any longer. I must go back to my own home." Mother Hulda answered, "It pleases me well that you should wish to go home, and as you have served me faithfully, I will undertake to send you there." She took her by the hand and led her to a large door standing open, and as she was passing through it, there fell upon her a heavy shower of gold, and the gold hung all about her so that she was covered with it. "All this is yours because you have been so industrious," said Mother Hulda. And besides that, she returned to her spindle, the very same that she had dropped in the well. And then the door was shut again, and the girl found herself back again in the world not far from her mother's house. And as she passed through the yard, the cock stood on the top of the well and cried, "Cock-a-doodle, do, our golden girl has come home too." Then she went in to her mother, and as she had returned, covered with gold, she was well received. So the girl related all her history and what had happened to her. And when the mother heard how she came to have such great riches, she began to wish that her ugly and idle daughter might have the same good fortune. So she sent her to sit by the well and spin. And in order to make her spindle bloody, she put her hand into the thorn hedge. Then she threw the spindle into the well and jumped in herself. She found herself like her sister, in the beautiful meadow, and followed the same path. And when she came to the baker's oven, the bread cried out, "Oh, take me out! Take me out, or I shall burn. I am quite done already." But the lazy bones answered, "I have no desire to black my hands," and went on farther. Soon she came to the apple tree, who called out, "Oh, shake me, we apples are all of us ripe." But she answered, "That is all very fine. Suppose one of you should fall on my head," and went on farther. When she came to Mother Hulda's house, she did not feel afraid, as she knew beforehand of her great teeth, and entered into her service at once. The first day she put her hand well to the work, and was industrious, and did everything Mother Hulda bade her, because of the gold she expected. But the second day she began to be idle, and the third day still more so that she would not get up in the morning. Neither did she make Mother Hulda's bed as it ought to have been made, and did not shake it for the feathers to fly about, so that Mother Hulda soon grew tired of her, and gave her warning, at which the lazy thing was well pleased, and thought that now the shower of gold was coming. So Mother Hulda led her to the door, and as she stood in the doorway, instead of the shower of gold, a great kettle full of pitch was emptied over her. "That is the reward for your service," said Mother Hulda, and shut the door. So the lazy girl came home all covered with pitch, and the cock on the top of the well, seeing her, cried, "Cock-a-doodle-doo, our dirty girl has come home too." And the pitch remained sticking to her fast, and never, as long as she lived, could it be got off. Jorinda and Joringel. There was once an old castle in the midst of a large and thick forest, and in it an old woman, who was a witch, dwelt all alone. In the daytime, she changed herself into a cat or a screech owl, but in the evening she took her proper shape again as a human being. She could lure wild beasts and judges to her, and then she killed and boiled and roasted them. If anyone came within 100 paces of the castle, he was obliged to stand still, and could not stir from the place until she bade him be free. But whenever an innocent maiden came within this circle, she changed her into a bird, and shut her up in a wicker-work cage, and carried the cage into a room in the castle. She had about 7,000 cages of rare birds in the castle. Now there was once a maiden who was called Jorinda, who was fairer than all other girls. She and a handsome youth named Joringel had promised to marry each other. They were still in the days of betrothal, and their greatest happiness was being together. One day, in order that they might be able to talk together in quiet, they went for a walk in the forest. "Take care," said Joringel, "that you do not go too near the castle, It was a beautiful evening. The sun shone brightly between the trunks of the trees into the dark green of the forest, and the turtle doves sang mournfully upon the young boughs of the birch trees. Jorinda wept now, and then she sat down in the sunshine and was sorrowful. Joringel was sorrowful too. They were as sad as if they were about to die. Then they looked around them and were quite at a loss, for they did not know by which way they should go home. The sun was still half above the mountain and half set. Joringel looked through the bushes and saw the old walls of the castle close at hand. He was horror-stricken and filled with deadly fear. Jorinda was singing, "My Little Bird with the Necklace." Red sings sorrow, sorrow, sorrow. He sings that the dove must soon be dead, sings sorrow, sore. Jug, jug, jug. Joringel looked for Jorinda. She was changed into a nightingale and sang, "Jug, jug, jug." A screech owl with glowing eyes flew 3 times round about her, and 3 times cried, "To-hoo, to-hoo, to-hoo." Joringel could not move. He stood there like a stone, and could neither weep, nor speak, nor move hand or foot. The sun had now set. The owl flew into the thicket, and directly afterwards there came out of it a crooked old woman, yellow and lean, with large red eyes and a hooked nose, the point of which reached to her chin. She muttered to herself, caught the nightingale, and took it away in her hand. Joringel could neither speak nor move from the spot. The nightingale was gone. At last the woman came back and said in a hollow voice, "Greet thee, Zachiel. If the moon shines on the cage, Zachiel let him loose at once." Then Joringel was freed. He fell on his knees before the woman and begged that she would give him back his Jorinda, but she said that he should never have her again, and went away. He called, he wept, he lamented, but all in vain. Ah, what is to become of me? Joringel went away, and at last came to a strange village. There he kept sheep for a long time. He often walked round and round the castle, but not too near to it. At last he dreamt one night that he found a blood-red flower, in the middle of which was a beautiful, large pearl. That he picked the flower and went with it to the castle, and that everything he touched with the flower was freed from enchantment. He also dreamt that by means of it he recovered his Jorinda. In the morning, when he awoke, he began to seek over hill and dale if he could find such a flower. He sought until the 9th day, and then early in the morning he found the blood-red flower. In the middle of it, there was a large dewdrop, as big as the finest pearl. Day and night he journeyed with this flower to the castle. When he was within 100 paces of it, he was not held fast, but walked on to the door. Joringel was full of joy. He touched the door with the flower, and it sprang open. He walked in through the courtyard and listened for the sound of the birds. At last he heard it. He went on and found the room from whence it came, and there the witch was feeding the birds in the 7,000 cages. When she saw Joringel, she was angry, very angry, and scolded, and spat poison and gall at him, but she could not come within 2 paces of him. He did not take any notice of her, but went and looked at the cages with the birds. But there were many 100 nightingales. How was he to find his Jorinda again? Just then, he saw the old woman quietly take away a cage with a bird in it and go towards the door. Swiftly, he sprang towards her, touched the cage with the flower, and also the old woman. She could now no longer bewitch anyone, and Jorinda was standing there, clasping him round the neck, and she was as beautiful as ever. Frederick and Catherine. There was once on a time a man who was called Frederick, and a woman called Catherine, who had married each other and lived together as young married folks. One day, Frederick said, "I will now go and plow Catherine. When I come back, there must be some roast meat on the table for hunger and a fresh draught for thirst." "Just go, Frederick," answered Kate. "Just go. I will have all ready for you." Therefore, when dinner time drew near, she got a sausage out of the chimney, put it in the frying pan, put some butter to it, and set it on the fire. The sausage began to fry and to hiss. Catherine stood beside it and held the handle of the pan and had her own thoughts as she was doing it. Then it occurred to her, "While the sausage is getting done, thou couldst go into the cellar and draw beer." So she set the frying pan safely on the fire, took a can, and went down into the cellar to draw beer. The beer ran into the can, and Kate watched it, and then she thought, "Oh dear, the dog upstairs is not fastened up. It might get the sausage out of the pan." Well, thought of. And in a trice she was up the cellar steps again, but the Spitz had the sausage in its mouth already, and trailed it away on the ground. But Catherine, who was not idle, set out after it, and chased it a long way into the field. The dog, however, was swifter than Catherine, and did not let the sausage journey easily, but skipped over the furrows with it. "What's gone is gone," said Kate, and turned round, and as she had run till she was weary, she walked quietly and comfortably and cooled herself. During this time, the beer was still running out of the cask, for Kate had not turned the tap. And when the can was full, and there was no other place for it, It ran into the cellar and did not stop until the whole cask was empty. As soon as Kate was on the steps, she saw the mischance. "Good gracious," she cried. "What shall I do now to stop Frederick knowing it?" She thought for a while, and at last she remembered that up in the garret was still standing a sack of the finest wheat flour from the last fair, and she would fetch that down and strew it over the beer. "Yes," said she, "he who saves a thing when he ought has it afterwards when he needs it." And she climbed up to the garret and carried the sack below and threw it straight down on the can of beer, which she knocked over. And Frederick's draught swam also in the cellar. "It is all right," said Kate. "Where the one is, the other ought to be also." And she strewed the meal over the whole cellar. When it was done, she was heartily delighted with her work, and said, "How clean and wholesome it does look here." At midday, home came Frederick. "Now, wife, what have you ready for me?" "Ah, Freddie," she answered, "I was frying a sausage for you, but whilst I was drawing the beer to drink with it, the dog took it away out of the pan, and whilst I was running after the dog, all the beer ran out, and whilst I was drying up the beer with the flour, I knocked over the can as well. But be easy, the cellar is quite dry again," said Frederick. "Kate, Kate, you should not have done that, to let the sausage be carried off and the beer run out of the cask and throw out all our flour into the bargain. Indeed, Frederick, I did not know that you should have told me." The man thought, "If my wife is like this, I must look after things more." Now he had got together a good number of thalers, which he changed into gold, and said to Catherine, "Look, these are counters for playing games. I will put them in a pot and bury them in the stable under the cow's manger. But mind you, keep away from them, or it will be the worse for you." Said she, "Oh, no, Frederick, I certainly will not go." And when Frederick was gone, some peddlers came into the village who had cheap earthen bowls and pots, and asked the young woman if there was nothing she wanted to bargain with them for. "Oh, dear people," said Catherine, "I have no money and can buy nothing, but if you have any use for yellow counters, I will buy of you." "Yellow counters? Why not? But just let us see them. Then go into the stable and dig under the cow's manger, and you will find the yellow counters. I am not allowed to go there." The rogues went thither, dug and found pure gold. Then they laid hold of it, ran away, and left their pots and bowls behind in the house. Catherine, though she must use her new things, and as she had no lack in the kitchen already, without these, she knocked the bottom out of every pot and set them all as ornaments on the paling which went round about the house. When Frederick came and saw the new decorations, he said, "Catherine, what have you been about?" "I have bought them, Frederick, for the counters which were under the cow's manger. I did not go there myself. The peddlers had to dig them out for themselves." "Ah, wife," said Frederick, "what have you done? Those were not counters, but pure gold, and all our wealth. You should not have done that." "Indeed, Frederick," said she, "I did not know that you should have forewarned me." Catherine stood for a while and bethought to herself. Then she said, "Listen, Frederick, we will soon get the gold back again. We will run after the thieves." "Come then," said Frederick, "we will try it, but take with you some butter and cheese that we may have something to eat on the way." "Yes, Frederick, I will take them." They set out, and as Frederick was the better walker, Catherine followed him. "It is to my advantage," thought she, "when we turn back, I shall be a little way in advance." Then she came to a hill where there were deep ruts on both sides of the road. "There one can see," said Catherine, "how they have torn and skinned and galled the poor earth. It will never be whole again as long as it lives." And in her heart's compassion, she took her butter and smeared the ruts right and left, that they might not be so hurt by the wheels. And as she was thus bending down in her charity, one of the cheeses rolled out of her pocket down the hill. Said Catherine, "I have made my way once up here. I will not go down again. Another may run and fetch it back." So she took another cheese and rolled it down. But the cheeses did not come back, so she let a third run down, thinking, "Perhaps they are waiting for company and do not like to walk alone." As all three stayed away, she said, "I do not know what that can mean, but it may perhaps be that the third has not found the way and has gone wrong. I will just send the fourth to call it." But the fourth did no better than the third. Then Catherine was angry and threw down the fifth and sixth as well, and these were her last. She remained standing for some time, watching for their coming. But when they still did not come, she said, "Oh, you are good folks to send in search of death. You stay a fine, long time away. Do you think I will wait any longer for you? I shall go my way. You may run after me. You have younger legs than I." Catherine went on and found Frederick, who was standing waiting for her because he wanted something to eat. "Now, just let us have what you have brought with you," said he. She gave him the dry bread. "Where have you the butter and the cheeses?" asked the man. "Ah, Freddie," said Catherine, "I smeared the cart ruts with the butter, and the cheeses will come soon. One ran away from me, so I sent the others after to call it," said Frederick. You should not have done that, Catherine, to smear the butter on the road and let the cheeses run down the hill. Really, Frederick, you should have told me." Then they ate the dry bread together, and Frederick said, "Catherine, did you make the house safe when you came away?" "No, Frederick, you should have told me to do it before." "Then go home again and make the house safe before we go any farther, and bring with you something else to eat. I will wait here for you." Catherine went back and thought, "Frederick wants something more to eat. He does not like butter and cheese, so I will take with me a handkerchief full of dried pears and a pitcher of vinegar for him to drink." Then she bolted the upper half of the door fast, but unhinged the lower door and took it on her back, believing that when she had placed the door in security, the house must be well taken care of. Catherine took her time on the way and thought, "Frederick will rest himself so much the longer." When she had once reached him, she said, "Here is the house door for you, Frederick, and now you can take care of the house yourself." "Oh, heavens," said he, "what a wise wife I have. She takes the under door off the hinges that everything may run in and bolts the upper one. It is now too late to go back home again. But since you have brought the door here, you shall just carry it farther." "I will carry the door, Frederick, but the dried pears and the vinegar jug will be too heavy for me. I will hang them on the door. It may carry them." And now they went into the forest and sought the rogues, but did not find them. At length, as it grew dark, they climbed into a tree and resolved to spend the night there. Scarcely, however, had they sat down at the top of it, than the rascals came thither, who carry away with them what does not want to go and find things before they are lost. They sat down under the very tree in which Frederick and Catherine were sitting, lighted a fire, and were about to share their booty. Frederick got down on the other side and collected some stones together. Then he climbed up again with them and wished to throw them at the thieves and kill them. The stones, however, did not hit them, and the knaves cried, "It will soon be morning. The wind is shaking down the fir apples." Catherine still had the door on her back, and as it pressed so heavily on her, she thought it was the fault of the dried pears, and said, "Frederick, I must throw the pears down." "No, Catherine, not now," he replied. "They might betray us." "Oh, but Frederick, I must. They weigh me down far too much." "Do it then, and be hanged." Then the dried pears rolled down between the branches, and the rascals below said, "The leaves are falling." A short time afterwards, as the door was still heavy, Catherine said, "Ah, Frederick, I must pour out the vinegar." "No, Catherine, you must not. It might betray us." "Ah, but Frederick, I must. It weighs me down far too much." Then do it, and be hanged." So she emptied out the vinegar, and it besprinkled the robbers. They said amongst themselves, "The dew is already falling." At length Catherine thought, "Can it really be the door which weighs me down so?" and said, "Frederick, I must throw the door down." "No, not now, Catherine. It might discover us." "Oh, but Frederick, I must. It weighs me down far too much." "Oh, no, Catherine, do hold it fast." "Ah, Frederick, I am letting it fall." "Let it go, then, in the devil's name." Then it fell down with a violent clatter, and the rascals below cried, "The devil is coming down the tree." And they ran away and left everything behind them. Early next morning, when the two came down, they found all their gold again and carried it home. When they were once more at home, Frederick said, "And now, Catherine, you too must be industrious and work." "Yes, Frederick, I will soon do that. I will go into the field and cut corn." When Catherine got into the field, she said to herself, "Shall I eat before I cut? Or shall I sleep before I cut? Oh, I will eat first." Then Catherine ate, and eating made her sleepy, and she began to cut, and half, in a dream, cut all her clothes to pieces, her apron, her gown, and her shift. When Catherine awoke again after a long sleep, she was standing there half naked, and said to herself, "Is it I, or is it not I? Alas, it is not I." In the meantime, night came, and Catherine ran into the village, knocked at her husband's window, and cried, "Frederick, what is the matter? I should very much like to know if Catherine is in." "Yes, yes," replied Frederick. "She must be in and asleep." Said she, "'Tis well, then I am certainly at home already," and ran away. Outside, Catherine found some vagabonds who were going to steal. Then she went to them and said, "I will help you to steal." The rascals thought that she knew the situation of the place and were willing. Catherine went in front of the houses and cried, "Good folks, have you anything? We want to steal." The thieves thought to themselves, "That's a fine way of doing things," and wished themselves once more rid of Catherine. Then they said to her, "Outside the village, the pastor has some turnips in the field. Go there and pull up some turnips for us." Catherine went to the ground and began to pull them up, but was so idle that she did not gather them together. Then a man came by, saw her, and stood still, and thought that it was the devil who was thus rooting amongst the turnips. He ran away into the village to the pastor and said, "Mr. Pastor, the devil is in your turnip ground, rooting up turnips." "Ah, heavens," answered the pastor, "I have a lame foot. I cannot go out and drive him away." Said the man, "Then I will carry you on my back." And he carried him out on his back. And when they came to the ground, Catherine arose and stood up her full height. "Ah, the devil!" cried the pastor, and both hurried away, and in his great fright the pastor could run better with his lame foot than the man who had carried him on his back could do with his sound one. King Thrushbeard. A king had a daughter who was beautiful beyond all measure, but so proud and haughty withal that no suitor was good enough for her. She sent away one after the other and ridiculed them as well. Once the king made a great feast and invited thereto from far and near all the young men likely to marry. They were all marshaled in a row according to their rank and standing. First came the kings, then the grand dukes, then the princes, the earls, the barons, and the gentry. Then the king's daughter was led through the ranks, but to every one she had some objection to make. One was too fat. "The wine cask," she said. Another was too tall. "Long and thin has little in." The third was too short. "Short and thick is never quick." The fourth was too pale as death. The fifth too red, a fighting cock. The sixth was not straight enough, a green log dried behind the stove. So she had something to say against everyone, but she made herself especially merry over a good king who stood quite high up in the row and whose chin had grown a little crooked. "Well," she cried and laughed, "he has a chin like a thrush's beak," and from that time he got the name of King Thrushbeard. But the old king, when he saw that his daughter did nothing but mock the people and despised all the suitors who were gathered there, was very angry and swore that she should have for her husband the very first beggar that came to his doors. A few days afterwards, a fiddler came and sang beneath the windows, trying to earn a small alms. When the king heard him, he said, "Let him come up." So the fiddler came in his dirty, ragged clothes and sang before the king and his daughter, and when he had ended, he asked for a trifling gift. The king said, "Your song has pleased me so well that I will give you my daughter there to wife." The king's daughter shuddered, but the king said, "I have taken an oath to give you to the very first beggar man, and I will keep it." All she could say was in vain. The priest was brought, and she had to let herself be wedded to the fiddler on the spot. When that was done, the king said, "Now it is not proper for you, a beggar woman, to stay any longer in my palace. You may just go away and with your husband." The beggar man led her out by the hand, and she was obliged to walk away on foot with him. When they came to a large forest, she asked, "To whom does that beautiful forest belong?" "It belongs to King Thrushbeard. If you had taken him, it would have been yours." "Ah, unhappy girl that I am, if I had but taken King Thrushbeard." Afterwards, they came to a meadow, and she asked again, "To whom does this beautiful green meadow belong?" "It belongs to King Thrushbeard. If you had taken him, it would have been yours." "Ah, unhappy girl that I am, if I had but taken King Thrushbeard." Then they came to a large town, and she asked again, "To whom does this fine, large town belong?" "It belongs to King Thrushbeard. If you had taken him, it would have been yours." "Ah, unhappy girl that I am, if I had but taken King Thrushbeard." "It does not please me," said the fiddler, "to hear you always wishing for another husband. Am I not good enough for you?" At last they came to a very little hut, and she said, "Oh, goodness, what a small house! To whom does this miserable, mean hovel belong?" The fiddler answered, "That is my house and yours, where we shall live together." She had to stoop in order to go in at the low door. "Where are the servants?" said the king's daughter. "What servants?" answered the beggar man. "You must yourself do what you wish to have done. Just make a fire at once and set on water to cook my supper. I am quite tired." But the king's daughter knew nothing about lighting fires or cooking, and the beggar man had to lend a hand himself to get anything fairly done. When they had finished their scanty meal, they went to bed, but he forced her to get up quite early in the morning in order to look after the house. For a few days, they lived in this way, as well as might be, and came to the end of all their provisions. Then the man said, "Wife, we cannot go on any longer, eating and drinking here and earning nothing. You weave baskets." He went out, cut some willows, and brought them home. Then she began to weave, but the tough willows wounded her delicate hands. "I see that this will not do," said the man. "You had better spin. Perhaps you can do that better." She sat down and tried to spin, but the hard thread soon cut her soft fingers so that the blood ran down. "See," said the man, "you are fit for no sort of work. I have made a bad bargain with you. Now I will try to make a business with pots and earthenware. You must sit in the marketplace and sell the ware." "Alas," thought she, "if any of the people from my father's kingdom come to the market and see me sitting there selling, how they will mock me." But it was of no use. She had to yield, unless she chose to die of hunger. For the first time, she succeeded well, for the people were glad to buy the woman's wares because she was good-looking, and they paid her what she asked. Many even gave her the money and left the pots with her as well. So they lived on what she had earned as long as it lasted. Then the husband bought a lot of new crockery. With this, she sat down at the corner of the marketplace and set it out round about her ready for sale. But suddenly, there came a drunken hussar galloping along, and he rode right amongst the pots so that they were all broken into 1,000 bits. She began to weep and did now know what to do for fear. "Alas, what will happen to me?" cried she. "What will my husband say to this?" She ran home and told him of the misfortune. "Who would seat herself at a corner of the marketplace with crockery?" said the man. "Leave off crying. I see very well that you cannot do any ordinary work, so I have been to our king's palace and have asked whether they cannot find a place for a kitchen maid, and they have promised me to take you. In that way, you will get your food for nothing." The king's daughter was now a kitchen maid and had to be at the cook's beck and call and do the dirtiest work. In both her pockets, she fastened a little jar in which she took home her share of the leavings, and upon this they lived. It happened that the wedding of the king's eldest son was to be celebrated, so the poor woman went up and placed herself by the door of the hall to look on. When all the candles were lit, and people each more beautiful than the other entered, and all was full of pomp and splendor, she thought of her lot with a sad heart, and cursed the pride and haughtiness which had humbled her and brought her to so great poverty. The smell of the delicious dishes which were being taken in and out reached her, and now and then the servants threw her a few morsels of them. These she put in her jars to take home. All at once, the king's son entered, clothed in velvet and silk, with gold chains about his neck. And when he saw the beautiful woman standing by the door, he seized her by the hand and would have danced with her. But she refused and shrank with fear, for she saw that it was King Thrushbeard, her suitor, whom she had driven away with scorn. Her struggles were of no avail. He drew her into the hall, but the string by which her pockets were hung broke. The pots fell down, the soup ran out, and the scraps were scattered all about. And when the people saw it, there arose general laughter and derision, and she was so ashamed that she would rather have been 1,000 fathoms below the ground. She sprang to the door and would have run away, but on the stairs a man caught her and brought her back. And when she looked at him, it was King Thrushbeard again. He said to her kindly, "Do not be afraid. I and the fiddler who has been living with you in that wretched hovel are one. For love of you, I disguised myself so. And I also was the hussar who rode through your crockery. This was all done to humble your proud spirit and to punish you for the insolence with which you mocked me." Then she wept bitterly and said, "I have done great wrong and am not worthy to be your wife." But he said, "Be comforted. The evil days are past. Now we will celebrate our wedding." Then the maids in waiting came and put on her the most splendid clothing, and her father and his whole court came and wished her happiness in her marriage with King Thrushbeard, and the joy now began in earnest. I wish you and I had been there too.